Out the insurance cards, get out the copays. The office is open, my friends. Brought to you by drroto.com.
Good evening, everybody. It is the Look Back with Sam and Maddie. I'm not Sam, though. I'm Chris. It is Sam's birthday, so I am filling in here. It's a little late for me here on the East Coast, but did just have a good game. Did work out well for me financially, and just, it was decent to watch. How about you? How are you doing tonight?
I mean, I'm a little bummed I didn't get invited to Sam's little birthday hoorah, but it's fine. I'm here and I'm thriving.
Well, that's all we can ask.
I didn't win any big money like you did, though.
I didn't win big money tonight. Tonight was kind of broke even in a couple, won a little bit here and there. I was really heavy on Antonio Gibson. I was heavy on Washington as a whole, and I thought Russ would not have a good game. And he didn't, but it was almost really bad. It was almost a really bad game. So, we could talk about Thanksgiving, but let's talk about this game. I mean, this game first. I think that's what you guys do. It's, again, usually pretty late for me. And, if this game doesn't go well, I just want to get to sleep and get on to the next week. But this week was good. This game was good. Washington has been streaking. They've looked a lot better in recent weeks, winning a couple of games. That defense, despite not having, the cornerstone and Chase, like they've looked really pretty stout the last couple of weeks.
They've done okay. I've been really impressed with Heineke and what he's been doing. Even with all the off-field drama that's surrounding them right now, I'm impressed that they've done as well as they've done, but also the Seahawks, I mean, you said it, they just don't look good right now.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know what it is.
Russ doesn't look like he wants to be out there playing.
I don't think DK wants to either. I don't know if Russ just feels like DK is a little too much of a heathen or something like that. He doesn't want to throw the ball. I mean, I don't have any other. That doesn't seem like a good explanation, but I don't have any other explanation for how he missed him wide open so many times. And throughout this entire season, when Russ has been playing, he has significantly favored looking towards Tyler Lockett. This isn't something new. This was just in prime time and highlighted. Derrick Henry broke this team.
I agree.
So
it's all bad. I think that they're heading towards a rebuild.
Yeah, and I've seen some people talk about it. I mean, you don't necessarily really have a window. You have to get rid of a lot of these guys. Your defense is not good. We saw it here. The offense has the pieces. I mean, arguably, this offense should be one that's high-powered, but not having a running back, not having an offensive line, and having two receivers that just seemingly can't play well at the same time. Right. It just hasn't boded well for them. But yeah, getting back to your point, Heineke has looked fantastic. He gets better throughout the games. He still does throw a couple of those passes out there that just you got to bring it down a little bit. You're going to get one of your wide receivers killed. It was almost Logan Thomas today, and it ended up being an interception. But you can kind of take that with while he's not a literally young quarterback, a young career quarterback, I guess you could say.
I'd say he's a really, really great backup quarterback, and that's how he plays.
Yeah, I mean, he's better than a lot of quarterbacks that are playing right now, though. I mean, I think Heineke's playing better than Jared Goff. He's better than anybody in Chicago. Arguably, probably better than Jimmy
Most
G.
of the rookies, yeah.
So, yeah, there's a couple. We can actually kind of go through these games, and as we go through them, we can talk about how does Heineke rate? Would he do better in these situations? The big thing for fantasy, though, is with McKissick going down, Antonio Gibson carrying a huge load, and that was despite before the injury. Didn't get any of the touchdowns, but Gibson looks like he could be that guy that wins a couple people their leagues if they're still in contention after dealing with him for the first 12 to 14 weeks.
I agree, especially when we're heading towards the back end of the season. We're going to be running the ball a little bit more. So I agree. He's the guy that I would look at.
Yeah, and that's a point we'll bring up. There's a couple teams that just have kind of changed the direction completely where their offense is going. Maybe it's just a microcosm, a couple of games, but teams are running the ball a lot more, it seems like. So going back to Thanksgiving, we started the games with the Bears and the Lions. This was a really tough game on a lot of fronts. both of the running backs were super chalk on every DFS slate, and neither of them were able to produce, one because of injury and the other one quite possibly partially because of the other one's injury, and neither offense really get going. I don't have a lot to talk about in this game. Darnell Mooney looked good. Dalton was okay. The rest of it was eh.
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt. It was really hard for me to even watch this game. I ended up having to go back and watch some of the highlights just to be able to put down notes. And I mean, I really don't like to watch Jared Goff play. I think that he a lot of times looks like he doesn't know what he's doing. And that's literally what my report was about. I was really bummed with Swift, as everybody was, with him leaving the game. Yeah, I don't really have a whole lot on Lions Bears.
Well, and yeah, I'm sure the highlights didn't take you very long to go back and watch. You know, the point about Jared Goff, he's not played well. He has looked poor, but I mean, look, he doesn't have a great offensive line. And he certainly doesn't have
offensive line, yeah.
He doesn't have wide receivers. I think you put just about anybody in that situation, and they're going to look similarly bad. Goff has always been a guy that has done very poorly under pressure. That's why he was able to be successful on the Rams at times when they had a great offensive line, and he was not pressured. But that's just not going to be the case here. I think he's coming back next year. I think you kind of almost have to give him that. But hopefully you can give him at least a competent NFL level wide receiver. I mean, when you come into the season thinking Tyrell Williams, probably who fits in as a number 3 wide receiver on any team in the league, is your number 1, and he goes down and his backup goes down and his backup goes down. It's just kind of a doom season. I just hope they can get a win. I
agree. When they start to build, they're going to build around Goff.
Well, the next game, though, stark contrast. We had the Raiders and the Cowboys. This was a game, and I had seen you talk about it with Doc, and I had kind of pinpointed the Raiders just felt like they were kind of imploding. And I did not expect this type of game from them. I think this is more of a byproduct outside of the Raiders coming to play against teams that are perceived as better than them. But also, I think the Cowboys, our expectations and belief of the Cowboys, despite the injuries that they have, I don't think they're as good as we thought they were at the beginning of the season.
I still think that they're a great team. I don't feel like they're playing to their potential. I think that people have now targeted their weak points, and they're not rallying. They're just kind of buckling down. And I think that was the difference between the Raiders and the Cowboys, is the Raiders were they were playing like dogs, doing whatever it took, fighting till the bitter end. And I think that the Cowboys, you can kind of see they give up about halfway through, and then something big happens, and they get a little bit of a juice going, and then they kind of fall back down.
Yeah, they don't play very well from behind. The couple times this year where they've fallen behind very early in games, they just have looked lifeless from there. Maybe that's something to do with the coaching, not making adjustments, just the overall psyche of the team. But you're playing Zeke. Pollard looks better.
Pollard looked great. To me, the one big thing that was a game changer in this game is Parsons didn't have the best game. And I feel like that's what a lot of it came down to. I mean, he didn't play bad, but he didn't have a standout game like he has been having.
I think one of the other things, too, is that, there was a lot of fanfare and a lot of tension sent towards Diggs earlier in the year.
Yeah.
And I mean, rightfully so. He made a lot of highlight reel interceptions, pick sixes, saved me on that pick six that he returned. I can't remember which week it was, but I don't even remember who it was against, but I needed that. I needed them to go
There's
cover.
Been so many.
But he's doing that and selling out a lot of times, and we've seen him get burned. So he's a boomer bust type of corner, and you're going to have regression from what he had, and you're seeing that. So they really took advantage of that. Renfro, Deshaun Jackson, all of these guys had big games, and it was a good game for the Raiders. So good win. 2 road teams win, and then the third road team, the Buffalo Bills, another team that just questionable in some of their games so far, came and really took care of everything here against New Orleans, who is like the Lions. They don't really have a lot of NFL caliber wide receivers on this team.
I agree. I mean, the Saints are just hurting altogether, and so everybody's like, the Bills are back. And to me, I'm still concerned because I mean, they won but that offensive line is so jumbled, they don't know which way's up. The defense really saved the Bills, and then they were able to do some things against the Saints. I don't think that this is as great of a win as what everybody else is chalking it up to be.
I'm not sure that the Bills have more than one win against a winning team. And I think that was against Kansas City, who, at the time, and we don't know what Kansas City is. They've played better recently, but at the time when the Bills played Kansas City, the Kansas City looked terrible. And maybe it was the Bills, but the Bills have a lot of wins against bad teams. They have a ton of holes, as you've highlighted. But I think the emergence of some type of running game, whether it be through Singletary, whether it be through Matt Breida, I feels like they've decided just Zach Moss is not the guy. And I'm not sure any of these guys are, but Breida has been a nice little kind of bump. It looks like the Saints are saying that they are going to be starting Taysom Hill on Thursday. So going to be an exciting game.
I know, that's what I'm just thinking. I do like Dawson Knox. I think that he had a great game. And I think that he's going to continue to find his way into the end zone the way that Josh Allen is playing. He's looking for a cop-out guy, and that's going to be Dawson Knox. It's easy.
I said this at the beginning of the year. I thought Josh Allen, I thought the ceiling was huge. I thought he was a great MVP candidate, but I had concerns that we might see something closer to a 2019 Josh Allen. There's no crowds last year, just had kind of like that immaculate season, not unlike Carson Wentz had a couple of years ago, where just everything seemed to go right. You could do no wrong. I don't think Josh Allen is what we saw last year. I don't think he's what he was in his early career. He is somewhere in between there and developing, but he has been pretty disappointing overall this year. Not in this game, but overall this year.
Yeah. I think you get him behind a solid offensive line, and we see MVP Josh Allen again.
Oh, man, we've got Johnny
Hot
Danger
takes.
talking about Dawson Knox. Loves to talk about Dawson Knox, his favorite player. It's this year's Tanyan, apparently. He says people say that, but he's the person that says that.
He's the one who puts
He's
that
the
out
only
there.
one who says it. He's the only
I
one who
understand, Danger. I understand.
It's a good comparison. But I did enjoy the couple of weeks that Dawson Knox was hurt because I didn't have to. Let's get into the Sunday games. Let's talk about a game that's near and dear to my heart here. This is probably the reason Sam decided not to come on the show, but the Steelers were just absolutely rocked by RB1 Joe Mixon. There's a lot of guys that are over on the Rum Boys network that are big, massive Joe Mixon haters. They don't think he's very good. I'm not saying Robbie himself, but he allows that type of slander to happen. But I think, I don't know, is Joe Mixon, I think he's like the RB2 overall. If you take Derrick Henry out of it, you keep him in there, he's like RB3. This guy is having a fantastic season. People are starting to talk about it now. If Jonathan Taylor wasn't doing what he's doing, how much attention were we talking about RB1 Joe Mixon?
If Jamar Chase wasn't on that team, that's all we would be hearing. The issue with him is he's so hit or miss, you can't depend on him. From a football standpoint, I'm talking like from a schematic standpoint. Like, I went to OU, so I've grown up watching this kid, and he's developed a little bit, but he does the same thing. It's like once he starts getting that confidence and that like cockiness, it like does the opposite for him. He needs a chip on his shoulder to be able to go out and perform. And once he starts getting comfortable, he kind of half-asses things. You'll see what I'm talking about. He'll go and just like fall down. He doesn't work for extra yards unless he has that like chip on his shoulder. So that's my issue with him.
I don't know, 28 carries, 165 yards, 2 touchdowns, plus involvement in the passing game. Feels like he was getting those extra yards. So that's okay.
They also needed this win.
Look, we can continue to have people be part of the Joe Mixon hater group. I have no problem. My Twitter account, 100%. The Joe Mixon fan club, and I like to point it out every single week. And I've been doing it a lot lately.
I hope he keeps it up. I do.
that team is another one of those teams that looks really good at times. The Steelers look shot. This was a game, a divisional game, should have been an under, but like the Steelers gave up I think the line was like 41, and they gave it up to the Bengals. So the Bengals do have that kind of explosiveness. T. Higgins, of course, comes back and makes a lot of people angry when he should have blown up. I think it was 2 weeks ago, but did it here. So
yeah, I agree. The Bengals are somebody to be feared. It's just the Steelers, they look so bad right now. Ben looks terrible. They have Najee, and that's about it. And I know that everybody's like, oh, the defense is fine. The defense is fine. And I don't think that it is.
Well, not only is it not fine, I mean, it had its pieces back, and it still got ran over by Joe Mixon. But Watt was just put on the COVID list, so he's more than likely probably not going to be able to make it to Sunday,
which is going to be terrible.
So, going back to a point you made earlier in the show, you talked about teams starting to run the ball more. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are one of those teams that earlier in the year were throwing the ball at a 72% rate. In this game right here, they ran the ball 27 times, threw it only 34. Tom Brady passing attempt props really just absolutely brutalized me. But Leonard Fournette came out and just had a fantastic game. They gave him so many touchdowns, and Ronald Jones even got one himself. Jonathan Taylor on the other side scored a touchdown too. This was a pretty good game, and not one that I would have thought was going to get to 69 points after a very, very slow 3-point first quarter.
I agree. I think that they did a decent job of shutting down Taylor. It's okay. So I have to capitalize on this because my day job never meets my side hustle. And Vita Vea with his broken teeth. Do you see that?
Yes. Yeah, I do. Remember.
So the tooth went flying, and I was so interested to see what was actually happening, because I saw the piece of tooth fly, and the way he got hit, like if you get hit just right here, it can literally knock your tooth out like from the root, like just straight out. And so I thought that's what happened, and I ended up seeing the picture later, and I was like, oh, he's gonna be okay. But he lost number 10. He's like already missing a tooth below, and then he chipped his front teeth. His teeth are all crazy, and just how bad that hurt, I can't even imagine. So I mean, I have to give him props because that was insane. And I also have to capitalize on my chance to be able to talk about teeth because I never get to do that.
Calling it a number 10, that's just I understand what you're saying, though.
I stopped myself. I will say whenever I was taking notes from that game, it like almost felt like I was doing dental notes. It's like number 10 was broken in half at the gingival third.
Well, I mean, moving forward, though, how do we rank these teams? I mean, Tampa, pulled out a nice win here, but they've given us some scares. I don't think that they're necessarily as good, but as we might have thought they were earlier in the year. But I don't know if there's a lot of teams outside of them that I feel confident can go get 3 or maybe 4 wins when the playoff comes around. I used to say that about Buffalo, and that, despite having tough losses, whether it be against Tennessee or, any of the games that they were unable to be successful in. But Tampa is a team that you just feel like they're never actually out of it because of Tom Brady. Just still
and
looking
that's
good.
Really where it is, because we even saw them go through patches with injuries, and then they came out and they still performed well. They may not have gotten every win, but they hung in there. They're a team that's going to be making it to the playoffs. Should do a top 1. I'll work on that, Danger.
All right. It'll be big in the Philippines, believe me. They love us there. Another game that, has a ton of fantasy impact and not necessarily in the way that it really is changing the trajectory of teams, but the Dolphins against the Panthers, and, Christian McCaffrey out for the rest of the year. Christian McCaffrey barely was even back. Who's played more this year? Has it been Cam or has it been Christian McCaffrey? I think it's pretty equal. And unfortunately, they have about the same amount of rushing touchdowns. At this point in Cam's career, he just feels, and I could be wrong, and maybe I'm perceiving this because I was always one of the biggest Cam backers for the longest time, defended him in so many different situations. He just feels like a selfish player right now. Feels like he wants the ball, feels like he's going to get the ball. And like you have Christian McCaffrey, even before the injury, how is this team so ineffective offensively? And have we seen the last of Cam Newton in Carolina? Do they go to PJ Walker?
I mean, he got benched. I think so. I think that what we're seeing now is exactly why he was cut from the Patriots.
Yeah, I talked about it in a write-up when he was first, brought, into the starting role, is that we saw this very type of Cam, dichotomy. Like he was really, really good, could get you 30 or 40 points. Think of like the first 2 weeks last year, the game against Seattle, the first game, I think it was even against Miami. He put up like 25, 35, something just ridiculous in terms of fantasy points, a lot of it through the ground. But then he'd have games where he'd put up 5 or 6 fantasy points, which just seems impossible for a veteran quarterback that has the running ability that he does. But he's just looked terrible. The Dolphins defensively have looked better, but what do you do with DJ Moore? What do you do with Robbie Anderson? These guys shouldn't even be starting in a lot of cases at this point.
I know. And just from like a football standpoint, if you think about it, you're thinking, okay, we have McCaffrey coming back, so we just need to get a quarterback who is a dual threat, but could also just hand off the ball and get out of there, just be able to game manage. And they just made a wrong decision. And so at this point, I think that his days are numbered. It does stink with DJ Moore just because, I mean, what do you do?
And, I saw something about Sam Darnold. Somebody was showing off like quarterback passing charts on TikTok. And, it was like, guess whose passing chart this was. And he showed Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold has like the worst completion percentage, attempts, QB rating to the left. Like, and if somebody can pick that up on Next Gen Stats, professional defensive coordinators are going to do that. And they know he's not going to throw it to the left. Just something that I thought was pretty interesting. But the Dolphins, Waddle, this is another guy that I highlighted as a possible, rookie of the year candidate on the offensive side. It's probably not going to happen now that Mac Jones is having such a great season. But Waddle has looked fantastic and is really carrying this Dolphins team. Somehow Gaskin, is still somewhat fantasy relevant, and Tua is okay. But this is a big win for them offensively against, despite all the woes that the Panthers offense has, their defense has been very good this year.
Defense stepped up a little bit. So did the offensive line. To me, I felt like the offensive line finally got into a rhythm. They weren't great, but I feel like they were much better than what we had been watching. Waddle had a great game. I feel like Tua had a little bit better game. And I think that that's he was a little bit more comfortable in the pocket.
Yeah, I can't say I watched a ton of this game. They didn't throw a lot of highlights because there wasn't much to see. But I will say I was pretty excited because the Dolphins were my highest owned defense. And that's just, they were super cheap on FanDuel. So, when they got that touchdown, I felt like it was going to be a great game. It was just a good day.
I have a buddy who's a coach there, and so I feel like I have to kind of keep up with them.
Gotcha. All right, well, moving right along here, Patriots, Titans. I don't, is there really much to take from this game? The Titans are beat up. None of their wide receivers are there. Their running back's not there. Somehow they've found ways to still stay relevant and win games. They just weren't able to do it against this, Patriots team that doesn't seem like they have a lot of weapons, at least on the outside, but in terms of running backs, embarrassment of riches with both Harris and Stevenson, making neither of them necessarily fantasy super relevant, but in any given week, one of them is probably going to score a touchdown.
It's also New England. I was talking to Marcus Grant about this on Twitter. It's like the New England Patriots are the equivalent of that house that you go trick-or-treating at that says one candy per kid. Like, that's the New England Patriots. They don't want one person to be superstar status. But their defense, we knew their defense was good, and they just continue to mesh. It kind of irks my soul every time Judon has the games that he has, just because I'm a Ravens fan, so I feel like we've missed out on that. But they're doing a great job of developing Mac and playing towards his strengths. And they've kind of proven that you don't need a ton of weapons around you to be successful. You just have to do the little things.
And I will say that this is all the Patriots games, one of the nice things to bet, just game props is you can usually get 4.5 sacks. It's kind of like the standard 4.5, 5.5 is the prop per game. The Patriots are usually good for like 3 or 4 of those themselves. And Mac Jones is usually good to give up 1 or 2 of them himself. So that's a really nice player prop to just pay attention to when you're going through the different games.
That's a great tip.
Next game. I found that actually player props, one of the most predictable ones outside of like attempts, passing attempts, not completions. If you can get in a same game parlay, attempts are far more easy to predict than completions or yards. Same thing goes with receptions, but sacks is a fantastic place to go. It does kind of suck towards the end of the game, but you can usually get 1 or 2 when the one team's trying to catch up. So
taking notes over here.
Giants Eagles. I have really not much to say. Jalen Hurts is the guy that we thought he was, but just wasn't for so long. The regression has happened. This guy is not a good quarterback. He can run the ball. He's going to be fantasy relevant in certain situations, but we've seen the deficiencies that he has as a passer really become an issue for this team. And albeit they're like a couple teams we mentioned, they don't have a lot of weapons for him to throw to. But he looked bad against a Giants team that's not very good themselves. Only takeaway that I have here was that Saquon Barkley looked good, but this Giants team is just as lost as the Eagles team.
Yeah, I would say the Giants team is a little more gone. The Eagles aren't going anywhere this season, but everybody should kind of watch what happens in the offseason. Just because they brought in Uncle Brian Johnson, who is sold on Jalen Hurts, and that's all they're going to be working on this offseason is just developing the pass game. So I don't think that he had his best game, obviously, but I wouldn't say that he's a bad quarterback. And I think that next year we're going to see him kind of, I mean, I'm not saying he's going to be Lamar Jackson status, but we're going to see him kind of take that development trail that Lamar did.
All right. So Taylor Heineke or Jalen Hurts, who do you want?
Jalen Hurts.
Taylor Heineke for me. I don't want Jalen Hurts at all. I think he's really, really bad.
You're not the only one.
That's the hill I'm going to die on here. So
I sometimes sell myself on seeing potential. So
yeah, it has nothing to do with where he went to school, does it?
It actually doesn't. I think it has more to do with what I think Brian Johnson's going to do with him. And I know that he will die on the Jalen Hurts hill. So I don't think Jalen Hurts is going anywhere. But to be able to make sure that their foot's not in their mouth, he's going to put them to work all off season.
Well, that could be a hill that kills a lot of people then.
Could be.
Moving on. We've got a Falcons team that just another team that, and people like to talk about the parity this year. I would argue that there is a tremendous amount of parity every year, and we overblow it every year. Like, oh, it's so much parity. Maybe this year, part of it is just where are the wide receivers? I mean, the Titans wide receivers are hurt. The Lions don't have any. The Eagles don't have any.
The
Calvin
Browns
Ridley
don't want to catch the ball.
Yeah, Calvin Ridley's probably not making it back. I wouldn't come back to the Falcons at this point. They might not even want him to come back because they're not in this anymore. And the Jaguars certainly don't. I mean, the Marvin Jones number 1 wide receiver experiment has been tried in Detroit, and it doesn't work. He's not a number 1 wide receiver. He's a number 2 wide receiver, and that's not a number 1 offense.
Might be number 3 wide receiver.
Maybe at this point in his career he's number 3, but it's hard to judge that when you've got Trevor Lawrence, who looks like he has the arm talent but has no consistency. The only thing that I can take away from this is that Cordell Patterson is everything that people wanted him to be for so long in the fantasy community, but just nobody would let Cordell cook. Russ stopped cooking. Cordell's in the kitchen. He's doing it everywhere. This is what he was drafted for in Minnesota. This is what they kind of tried to do in Chicago, but Matt Nagy's like, nah, man, that's way too great of an idea to put you at running back. We're just gonna run you like 2 plays. We're just gonna tease
That's it. Yeah, I just hope I don't think it's sustainable is my only worry.
To what level, though? I mean, if he's getting 20 touches a game, how is it not sustainable, especially from a fantasy standpoint where, some of these are going to be catches out of the backfield. They're going to be higher value touches. His price in DFS isn't sustainable. But if he continues this, where do you think Cordell Patterson is drafted next year?
But do you think he's going to be able to continue this? Because
Yeah,
I feel like the Falcons are going to Falcons him. They're going to give him 40 touches just like the Titans did with Henry before he got hurt. And he's either going to get hurt or it's going to turn into everybody knows exactly how to stop them.
Well, but here's the thing. So if he gets, let's say 25, I think 40 is a little extreme. I don't think he's going to get that. But let's say he gets 15 catches and then 10 targets. Let's call it target at touch, maybe even upwards of 30. I don't think he's going to get 15 targets. Those targets are not the same type of wear and tear that the grinded out running game of Derrick Henry between the tackles is. So I think it's going to preserve him a little bit. Yes, he's on the older side of things for the NFL, but he doesn't have the miles on him like some of these other guys.
That's true. That's true.
I think Cordell Patterson possibly next year. Second round? Do you think he sneaks into the first round if he continues this level of production?
I say second round. I don't think he sneaks into the first round.
I'm talking maybe like on the turn. 12-team league. You can grab 2, especially if he has like a flexible, like, can he be playing the running back position? Can he be a wide receiver? You grab him at the turn there. And then, you can either then say, hey, look, I went 0 running back, but I didn't, it checks a lot of boxes, I guess.
I mean, I can kind of see your argument, but I'm not taking him before the second round.
Okay, that's what people said about Joe Mixon too, and that was a mistake. Let's go to the disaster game here. The Jets and the Texans. Zach Wilson, absolutely awful. Like, just so bad.
Both teams were so bad this game.
They really were. The problem from a fantasy standpoint is Zach Wilson has just looked absolutely atrocious. Even Joe Flacco in his current state, and Joe, he looks better than Zach Wilson and is better from a fantasy standpoint. Like, they just need to sit him down. Like, he's not ready. I don't think he ever will be ready. I've never been a big on Zach Wilson as a prospect, as a quarterback, and certainly not as a number 2 overall pick.
No. What's so funny to me is everything that I read about him coming into this season was his fundamentals. And if you watch him, his footwork is terrible. His throw is terrible. So I'm just like, everything that you were preaching about this guy is now gone. So I don't know where we go from here.
Well, I think teams need to stop taking like this cookie cutter approach. For the longest time, when you brought a quarterback in the league, they sat behind another guy, whether it be a year or half a year or whatever the case is. But then we've seen some of these quarterbacks, step right in and be super successful. But that's not going to be the case for everybody in either situation. What's right for Justin Herbert is not right for Zach Wilson, is not right for Justin Fields. Those two guys that on the later side of that, Fields and Wilson, Wilson didn't play in a big-time program, doesn't have any wins in college over, a big-time team. And while Fields does, he was a byproduct of a school that just lets everybody in, gets a ton of talent, has a lot of success, and just wasn't ready for the NFL game, whereas Justin Herbert really was. And they didn't even want him to start. They were going to start a guy from this same game, Tyrod Taylor, throughout the season until he got his lung punctured. And then we've seen, what Justin Herbert could do. So this is just a great segue into Justin Herbert, not super consistent still against the Broncos team that, I don't know. I felt like the Broncos probably should have been favored in this game. But I don't know.
I'd have to talk about this. Herbert's going to continue to have issues because of the right side of the line. He's not comfortable in the pocket. The right side of the line, they can't get it together. It's been this way. Ravens are the first ones who I watched expose it. And actually, it might have been the game before that. But it hasn't gotten any better. And he's not comfortable. He's just not, especially against a good defense. He's going to continue to shoot himself in the foot because of what's happening on that right side. He doesn't trust them, so he's not comfortable.
Yeah, and one of the things that So I don't go that deep into it. I look at some of the numbers and I try and find patterns between games where he's successful and where he's not, whether those are just, mythical patterns that I found and made up in my mind or not. One of the things that I saw is that he does have to have that high completion percentage, but they've also stopped seemingly, and this has been something with the Chargers for many years. Why is Mike Williams not involved? Like, why is he not getting double-digit targets like he was the first couple weeks of the season when this team was doing very, very well? Where are those targets at? Why is this not happening? You have a recipe for success, and you see it in teams all the time that they just get too cute. They decide to try other things, or they just stop doing what they were doing. And this is a situation where this team has a recipe for success. They just choose to go try some other recipes, I guess.
I agree. I think that they need to put him back directly under center, take snaps underneath, give him that extra second to be able to figure out what's going on with the defense, get his composure, and I think that he's going to have a lot more success. I think you're going to see a lot more targets downfield.
I think it's also a problem when your defense is as bad as it is, and that puts a lot more pressure on this. I mean, the Broncos offense with Drew Lock should not have been able to put up 28 points, but this was a home game. It was on a short week. Both the Chargers and the Steelers look like, that they're completely gassed from that game on Monday night. And, the Broncos got the win here. I thought that this was a good spot. Yeah, this was a good spot for an upset. I'm still buying in on Mike Williams. He's only like 5,700 in DFS on DraftKings this week, and he still has that potential to, put up 130 yards on 3 catches and a touchdown, as we've seen. So
I agree with you there.
Yeah, and hopefully Javonte Williams gets a lot more traction, a lot more run. He has, I think, the most broken tackles or forced broken tackles of any running back. So, of course, let's just keep running the ball with Melvin Gordon because that makes sense.
That's an interesting stat.
Yeah. I think I saw somebody say that he's going to start it's going to be like a Javonte Williams and Ramondre Stevenson. These are the running backs. It's the club of running backs that should be featured in their offense, but just they're not.
I think that's a great idea.
Next game, this one was a little bit surprising too. I felt like Matt Stafford was going to have a better game. I felt confident all week leading up till Sunday morning where I was like, no, it's just not going to happen. I mean, I saw the reports that he was banged up. I didn't think that it was a situation where he would be completely ineffective, but this team misses Robert Woods. The Packers are good. I hate Aaron Rodgers' hair. I hate when Brady had the long hair. He just looks so silly out there, but the guy is the MVP right now, and Matt Stafford has got to fix whatever is going on here.
Yeah, I agree with you on all of the above. All of the above. That hair's just terrible.
It should have been in Mine and Danger's hair podcast, but we never got it in there. Long hair, don't care. Yeah, I mean, I care. It looks
It's
terrible.
like the greasiness, too. It's not even just like, he just looks, I don't know. Like, if I saw him in an alley, you can bet I'd be turning around and going the long way home.
Yeah, because he's going to ask you for money is what it looks like. I mean,
it just looks dirty. I don't know.
But maybe he needs that level of careless, reckless abandon about everything that's going on in the world for him to be just this ultra successful guy that can get past the NFC Championship game. But yeah, look, I don't think OBJ is the guy that he was, those 1 or 2 seasons. I think it's something that we cling to. We see the potential, we saw the ceiling, and we saw the ceiling so early that we thought that there was going to be more of that, but there just might not be. It's the same thing that happened with Josh Gordon. You remember when everybody rushed to go get Josh Gordon on their fantasy team when he signed with the Chiefs? I was like, we do this every year, guys. We do this every year. There's always one.
My question for you is, do you think that we were all like, oh, OBJ, or do you think OBJ was telling us, you guys need to pick up OBJ?
I want to create, if I was good at video editing, I would create a kind of montage of passes that OBJ just dropped or didn't run the right route and send it to his dad and him. Like, you're not that guy. Like,
go ahead and add LeBron to that list too. No, I agree. I'm honestly I'm not an OBJ fan. And I think that the additions that they brought in actually hindered the team a little bit. There's no reason that defense shouldn't just be demolishing people. Like, quarterbacks should not be able to do anything. It should be sack after sack after sack. I don't know what's happening.
I think that there's some level of gelling there, but the thing is, we saw what Matt Stafford was in Detroit, and I think this is a better version of that. He has more weapons, but there were seasons where Matt Stafford had great teams around him, poor coaching, bad defenses, just a variety of different things happened. He's going to have situations like this. I don't think all the turnovers in this game were his fault, but they've got to kind of figure this out. It's crazy that Matt Stafford gets traded to the Rams, probably thinks that he's going to have some semblance of a running back and running game, and then it's ended up with Henderson, who's better than pretty much anything he ever had in Detroit, but still, this isn't Cam Akers. This isn't what you thought of. Be it said and done, he's probably much happier in LA than he would be in Detroit. So,
and this is one thing that's wild to me is we kind of were talking about teams changing things up on quarterbacks earlier. They were running the most empty out of anybody in the league, and it was working. And then all of a sudden, he just wasn't vibing with it. Stafford looked terrible out of empty. Nothing changed other than Stafford. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know if there's something under the behind the scenes that we're not seeing. I'm not really sure.
I don't know if him and Cooper Kupp are still having breakfast, but we need to figure that out. And, they need to get it together.
I need Kupp back.
Yeah, have an everything bagel with some cream cheese. It's a great way to start the day. One of Dave's bagels, nice protein-based one. It's fantastic.
Get a latte, feel good.
Yeah, that's what they need to be doing. That's probably what it is. Maybe they changed their diet of, it's like bulking season or something. Who knows? Kirk Cousins lines up under a guard, and people go nuts about it. Look, they lost the game. So if I was Kirk Cousins, and I'm not, but if I was, I would be hey, this is funny, right? Oops. I think at this point in his career, he's earned the, hey, yeah, I screwed up, man. It happened. Laugh it off. Everybody points to this as why he's not an elite quarterback. There's a lot of reasons he's not an elite quarterback, but he's right on that fringe. But this game, just again, the Vikings have all these weapons, and a guy that has underperformed fantasy-wise and won't be performing this week. Hope he gets better, but Dalvin Cook goes down. We're going to get Madison. Madison going against Detroit, 7,600 on DraftKings. I don't know if that's a price I want to pay, but Eli Mitchell is a guy that I want to pay for, and Deebo Samuel seems like he needs to be in every lineup all the time.
Yeah, I was sitting here thinking about it because I'm trying to teach my little sister a little bit more about football. She's 12, and we were talking about the Niners, and I was just thinking, how am I going to explain Deebo Samuel and
just say show Cordell Patterson. Show Cordell Patterson. There you go. This is him. So
no, I agree with you though with Cousins. Laugh it off. I think that if they would have won that game, it would not have been as big of a deal. He is going to be a gift that I use multiple times. So.
Yeah. I mean, the whole thing was funny. Some people were saying it was it could have been a fake, but then Madison's no, bro, you need to get under here. This is not a Wildcat fake. He should have just played it off. That would have been a great play too. But I hope that this offense can get it together. They are playing Detroit. Teams playing divisional opponents. Here's another little betting tip for you. Divisional opponents after week 10 are 62%. They went 4 or 5 last week. So bet the under Vikings and Detroit. I think it's at 40, 42, something like that. Maybe it's a little bit different, but bet the
under. Taking notes.
Yeah, just bet all the unders on divisional games from now on. Round robin it. Or don't round robin it, but you should still hit at 60%. You should be good. You'll profit.
Pretty good percentage to me.
Another divisional game, the last one of the week, a divisional game. It was the Ravens and the Browns in, it seems like every week in prime time, every week I see, discords that I'm in. People are is this the worst game of football ever? And it's no, guys, we had the Saints and the Seahawks. We had another game that I don't even want to remember from a week or two ago. And now we had the Ravens and Browns, where both of these teams just kept throwing the ball back and forth to each other. And somehow the Ravens came out as the winner from a phenomenal Mark Andrews catch that was almost a pass interference. They almost didn't give him the fantasy points for it.
They almost did not. And I remember seeing so many tweets immediately. They were just like, if they screw up my fantasy points for this, people were so upset. No, that was a great pass. But Lamar, 4 picks. I mean, he said himself, he's got to be better. That I tweeted out the first half and I said, do you guys think we're going to see any offense the second half? And I meant it.
I think Debo, and I mean, that's an okay comparison. I think it's a little bit different. Debo's, I feel like, a bigger guy and a better weapon, but Le'Veon Bell in his prime was the opposite, a running back that could be a wide receiver that's kind of really opened up the position for what it is now. But Cordell Patterson and Debo are doing things that I think are going to change the dynamic a lot of offenses and kind of open up that kind of wide receiver that's become a running back. We've seen it even like Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. These guys are getting carries. Tyreek Hill has for a long time. But getting back to this game, how does Nick Chubb not get 3 more yards at the end of that game is what my friend Pete Guggs wants to know.
I think that's what everybody wants to know. I think that's what everybody wants to know. I think that Baker included. But I will say that the Ravens defense came to play. Like, they were shut down city.
At what point do we have to just say, hey, Baker, it's done this year, man? Like, you're not better than Case Keenum, right? Maybe ever, but at least right now, you're not better than Case Keenum. Right
now, I agree. I would say go take care of your body. I think the issue is there's contract on the line.
Yeah, but at this point,
I mean, that's what it comes down to. I don't
think he's doing himself any favors by staying out there, though. That's the thing. The contract, I think, is getting worse. I mean, this will give him more time to do commercials and whatnot. I think Case Keenum needs to come in here and step in and quite frankly, find a way to get Dearness Johnson more involved, too. You can have 3 running backs. Why not?
And I agree with that 100%. Baker is putting his body on the line, and his receivers just have proven they are not going to catch the ball. They're not going to get open. He doesn't have
receivers. He doesn't. Yeah. He has Jarvis Landry and David Njoku, who they don't use nearly enough.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Like, that was a phenomenal catch too. I mean, Andrews, Njoku, they both have phenomenal catches. Unlike Logan Thomas tonight, who apparently did not have a catch.
Shots fired.
Apparently. I mean, I thought it was a catch, but I'm okay with it. But yeah, this Browns offense feels like they have some weapons that they can utilize, but they do a pretty poor job of it. I think they do a poor job of rotating Chubb and Hunt and how just this offense inside the 10-yard line, inside the red zone. This Browns team should be 8-4.
I agree. I think they've also had some major issues with the offensive line. They have a great offensive line, but they can't keep them healthy. And that throws off a lot of stuff. But yeah, if I'm Baker this year, I'm tapping out and saying, like, I'm going to go take care of my body, do some commercials. I mean, the guy's like the Lisa Rinna of the NFL. He doesn't say no to any business opportunity. Say, like, I need you to go sell, like, hemorrhoid cream, and he'd be on the first commercial.
Well, look, some of these guys understand that their careers can be short. I don't think that – I don't know. A guy like Baker, I think he thinks he's probably better than he is, but he probably realizes he's not as good as some of these quarterbacks that have the longevity. I personally would take Taylor Heineke over Baker Mayfield, especially in his current state. But look, if you're out there, make the most of it. You're not making that much as a player, comparatively to other sports, that is. Make a lot more than me. So, do the commercials. Why not? Build a brand for yourself.
No, I'm all for it. But yeah, he's destroying his body. So I think that you're absolutely right. The one benefit Baker has is being able to throw the ball, and that's not happening right now. So go ahead, tap out, take care of your body, let the Browns do the Browns this year, and then try to come back.
Look, if he doesn't do it, I think a good comparison to a quarterback that also didn't take care of themselves, got banged up, and we talked really poorly about him earlier in this show, is Cam Newton. Baker's not what Cam Newton was in his prime, but I think the comparisons are there. Cam played through a lot of injuries within his shoulder, a lot of injuries other places where he just didn't attend to that. And by the time he attended to it, he was outside of his playing window. And maybe that's what Baker is worried about. But I think he's young enough that that shouldn't be a concern for him. He needs to take care of it and give it a go, whether it's with this Browns franchise or somebody else. You never know.
I agree. I think the Browns are sold on him, whether they want to admit it or not, though.
Yeah, I mean, we'll look at what came out of the draft this year. So as much as I'm talking on Baker right now, there's not a quarterback that came out of this draft that I would say, you know what, I'd rather have him. Maybe some of these guys will progress to it, but when you don't have the certainty of it, I'm not sold on any of these guys. I think Trevor Lawrence will end up probably being the best, but
you think so?
Yeah, I just think that
you're not.
I don't know. I don't think he's going to be great, but I think he's going to be the best quarterback. Will he be thought of as the best quarterback? Maybe not. I think Mac Jones is going to be in the best situation. You look at a guy like, even for example, Tom Brady, who we revere as the best quarterback of all time, and rightfully so. Think about Tom Brady early career. Tom Brady early career was not very good. He wasn't asked to do a whole lot though.
That's true.
And the parallel on the same team is there. When you get these quarterbacks that are put into situations that are not asked to do a lot because the team is better around them, and these aren't the guys that are drafted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, those type of situations just lead to better quarterbacks. Patrick Mahomes on a team that was drafted like 8th or 9th, he got to sit and that team developed. But all these other guys, you get capped out. You turn into Derek Carr. Not a bad thing, but not somebody that's going to make it to Canton.
Not Tom Brady. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like Trevor Lawrence has regressed. I think that he was put into a really crummy situation, but I'm not sold that he's going to be able to perform as a top 5 NFL quarterback ever.
Well, and it just depends. If he stays there with Urban Meyer and that situation stays the way that it is, I think that's a real concern. There are situations that ruin quarterbacks. David Carr is one. I think Joey Harrington's another, from Detroit. So that's why that one pops up. But, there are plenty of these guys that were just put into situations with huge expectations and end up not being able to live up to it because of the situation that they're put in. And it just shatters and ruins their confidence. But I just think that the arm talent from Trevor Lawrence is there. I'd like to see some more weapons around him. I think that if you switch him and Mac Jones, do you feel that Mac Jones would have as much success as I think Mac Jones would be worse than Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence would be better than Mac. How much, I don't know, but I think that's where I'm looking at potential.
If you take like the variables out of it and you put Trevor Lawrence and Mac Jones in the same system, like if they came up together, I'm still taking Mac Jones over Trevor Lawrence solely because I feel like Trevor Lawrence is not very adaptable.
Okay. Well, that being said, if you put Zach Wilson or Fields on that Patriots team, I still think they both suck. So
I agree.
That's it for the look back. We ran a little long today. Do you have any final thoughts?
No. Happy birthday, Sam.
Happy birthday,
That's all I
Sam.
got.
All right. Well, Sam and Maddie will be back, same place, same time next week. You can find me in Danger on Wednesday nights, probably the same time that Maddie and Doc are doing it. We do a more DFS focused show. So depending on what you like, whether it's DFS, it's seasonal, we have a show for you on Wednesday. And check us out at drroto.com.
Yeah, I always catch it on the replay. So even though I don't get to tune in live, I'm always there. Great show, by the way.
Yeah, I watch you guys on Thursday morning when I'm playing video games. So
hey, I appreciate that.
All right, I'll talk to you later. Thanks, everyone.